At 3:11 in the afternoon, the sky over Coyote Ridge turned the color of a bruise. Sirens dopplered through the canyon, ash fell like gray confetti, and 20 cars idled in a panicked line at the end of my gravel fire road, stopped by 2 decorative boulders and a woman in a sun hat waving a clipboard like a traffic conductor. Residents must exit through the main gate. Renee Talbot shouted over the wind, her voice shrill with authority. The main gate was already swallowed by flame. I climbed into my skid steer, nudged the boulders aside like bowling pins, and yelled back at her with barely controlled frustration, "Or we can use the escape route you called visual clutter. Move." I'm Gavin Pike, quiet information technology consultant, compulsive tea drinker, and weekend chainsaw poet. I bought a low, stucco place on the rim of Coyote Ridge Estates, high above the town of Juniper Mesa. The hills around here burn every few summers. I grew up in it, watched the orange ribbons chase the ridgelines, learned to read wind and smoke before I could drive. So when I moved in, I did what made sense. With a county permit and a signed easement to a service road, I carved a modest gravel fire road along my back fence. No trees overhanging, reflective posts every 50 feet, a lockbox for first responders bolted to a pressure-treated post. It was clean, functional, safe. The HOA president, Renee Talbot, lives for 3 things: sightlines, bylaws, and the word aesthetic. My road offended all 3. To her, emergency preparedness was less important than maintaining the carefully curated illusion of a neighborhood untouched by reality. It started innocently enough, if you can call passive-aggressive notes on pastel cardstock innocent. "Unnecessary secondary driveway," read the first one, tucked under my windshield wiper in lavender ink. Then came gravel tone not community approved, written on mint green paper, as if gravel had a palate. The notes graduated to agenda items at monthly meetings where my name appeared as line item 7, G. Pike, egregious egress. I sat through presentations with clip art flames and kombucha on tap while Renee explained how my fire road created vehicular vibe disruption. She said my county permit was probably clip art. I watched her measure my reflector poles one morning with what appeared to be a jewelry caliper, muttering about non-conforming dimensional standards. Then the fines started. $50 for unapproved aesthetic infrastructure. Another $100 for secondary access without architectural committee blessing, even though the committee was just Renee in a different hat. I paid them with checks that had smiley faces in the memo line. One morning I woke to find my fire road buried under fresh sod, installed overnight and paid for by what the invoice called mandatory landscape corrections. The grass was already dying in the heat, turning the color of old hay. Another day, 6 enormous terracotta planters materialized across the mouth of the road like a dragon's teeth, each one stuffed with ornamental grasses that wouldn't survive the summer. Renee took photos for the neighborhood newsletter, which she also wrote, edited, and distributed. The caption read, "Restored Natural Harmony." I rolled the planters aside with a hand truck, lined them up along her driveway, and mailed the invoice back to her with another smiley face. She didn't appreciate the humor. Renee escalated from petty to dangerous with the confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences. She had a wrought iron gate installed, the kind you'd see on a wine estate, bolted directly into the easement and padlocked. Decorative access control, she called it in the email blast. My red reflectors disappeared overnight, probably into her garage with the caliper. The fire department lockbox, the one with the Knox key system that could save minutes in an emergency, was replaced with a decorative birdhouse painted to look like a tiny Victorian mansion. When I replaced the reflectors the next day, she called the sheriff to report vandalism of HOA property. The deputy who showed up looked tired. He examined my county permit, looked at the gate, looked at Renee, and suggested in the tone of someone who'd had this conversation before that she remove the obstruction. She refused. She had documentation, she announced. The Architectural Committee had approved it. The Architectural Committee, I reminded the deputy, was Renee wearing a different name tag. The county fire marshal got involved after my 3rd formal complaint. He sent a certified letter using phrases like obstruction of emergency egress and violation of Fire Code Section 12-43. Renee photocopied it, highlighted the word authorities, and waved it around the next HOA meeting as proof she was collaborating with officials. The irony was completely lost on her. The wind shifted on a Monday afternoon in late September. A lightning-sparked blaze that would later be named the Aoyo Creek Fire hopped the ridge like it had trained for hurdles, fueled by decades of drought and poor forest management. The sky turned orange, then gray, then the ugly brown of burning creosote. Smoke rolled down the canyon thick enough to taste. The main entrance to Coyote Ridge Estates jammed with traffic within minutes. Everyone had the same idea at the same time, and the single road out became a parking lot of panic. Then the wooden archway over the main gate, the one with Coyote Ridge, carved in Gothic letters that Renee loved to photograph, caught fire. Flames climbed it like a ladder. The road was closed. Reverse 911 calls blared from every phone. Evacuate now, evacuate immediately. A sheriff's Tahoe slewed to a stop above my fire road, lights strobing red and blue through the smoke. The deputy leaned out, face streaked with ash. "Is this the Pike route?" he shouted. "It is," I called back, pointing at the wrought iron gate that was still padlocked shut. He didn't hesitate. He radioed something I couldn't hear over the wind, then pulled a breaching tool from the back of his vehicle and snapped the padlock like it was made of plastic. The pieces landed in Renee's flower bed, scattering mulch. "Stand clear or be detained," he told her, his voice flat and final. Engine 47 lumbered in behind him, a massive red beast that barely fit on the gravel. The crew chief, a woman with soot on her face and calm in her eyes, gave me a two-finger salute as she passed. I hopped onto the skid steer, fired it up, and scraped the gravel flat where Renee's planters had compressed it. The line of cars began to creep forward, brake lights reflecting red in the smoke like demon eyes. Renee tried to plant herself in the middle of the road, clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield. She was still trying to control something, anything, even as embers fell around us like burning snow. The sheriff simply lifted her by the elbows and set her on the gravel shoulder like a child being removed from a grocery store tantrum. "Ma'am," he said, voice hard enough to cut glass, "you are under investigation for obstructing an emergency route." He gestured toward the wall of ink-black smoke rolling toward us. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Then she pointed at her binder of bylaws, holding it up as if laminated paper could repel fire. We waved vehicles through, one after another in an endless stream of headlights through smoke. Minivans with car seats and confused toddlers pressed against windows. A guy with a kayak strapped to his roof, looking bewildered at his own priorities. An elderly woman with a cat yowling inside a laundry basket, claws tearing through the wicker. A teenager on a motorcycle with a backpack and nothing else. The crew from Engine 47 used my turnouts to run a quick backburn, setting a controlled line of flame to rob the wildfire of fuel. The main blaze hit the cleared area and hissed like angry soda, then split around it. As the last car rolled onto the service road and down toward safety, the wind punched embers across the cul-de-sac where the main gate had been. It didn't matter anymore. Everyone was out. Through the unnecessary road. Through the road Renee had called visual clutter. Through the egregious egress. After the smoke cleared and the fire was contained 3 ridges over, consequences settled over Coyote Ridge like ash. The fire marshal filed formal citations against the HOA for illegal obstruction of a permitted egress, tampering with required safety markers, and interfering with emergency operations. Their insurance company, upon discovering invoices for decorative access control and architectural compliance enforcement, immediately froze all reimbursements and demanded leadership changes in writing. Renee was removed from the board in an emergency vote that took 11 minutes and sounded like applause. A judge ordered 40 hours of community service, specifically under the county's FireWise program. The assignment was deliberate and humiliating. She would help maintain my road and teach evacuation drills to the same neighbors she'd endangered. The HOA was required to adopt a real evacuation plan, post reflective markers at every secondary egress, and install a permanent sign at the top of my gravel lane. It reads, "Pike Emergency Egress. Do not block." Renee stood next to me when they bolted it in, her face the color of old concrete, saying nothing. I looked at the sign, then at her, and said with the smallest smile, "Very aesthetic." She turned and walked away without a word.